continue now at the top of Daf Nun Hayam and Beis and Meseches Pesachim. This is Pesachim Daf 55b. Gemara here is in the middle of a brisa. The brisa said that according to Rabbi Meir, any melacha that is letzorech hamoed gomra barba aser, you're allowed to finish that up on the 14th. Rashi says, Gomra barba aser afilu b'makom shelo noag ulasos malacha. Even in an area where the minhag is not to do malacha, still if you're just finishing up the malacha, then it's going to be okay. Amosai, when is this true? Bisman shehischil ba kodem arba aser. That's if you began the malacha before arba aser. Avalo hischil ba kodem arba aser. But if you didn't begin the malacha before the 14th, lo yaschil ba barba aser afil tzil katan afil sivcha katana. He can't start the malacha on the 14th, even if it's a small belt, even if it's a small hairnet. So the Gemara now brings its proof. Letzorech hamoed in shelo letzorech hamoed lo. The brisa says explicitly that Rabbi Meir is allowing this if it's letzorech hamoed, but if it wasn't letzorech hamoed, it would not be allowed. So the Gemara says not necessarily. Hu adin dafilu shelo letzorech nami gamrinan. It could be that Rabbi Meir in this brisa means that even if it's not letzorech hamoed, you're allowed to finish up the malach on the 14th if it began before the 14th. V'hakamash malon, the brisa is just telling us the afilu letzorech hamoed, even if it would be a situation where you're doing a letzorech hamoed, migmar in, you're allowed to finish the malacha aschule lo, but you're not allowed to begin a malacha. Tashma, come in here, the Gemara tries another proof. Rabbi Meir says, Kol malacha shi letzorech hamoed. Again, any malacha that is letzorech the yontiv, gomra barba aser, you're allowed to finish it on the 14th. V'she'enu letzorech hamoed, but if it's not for the purposes of the holiday aser, then it's aser. V'yosin malacha ba'arvei pesachim ad chatzos b'makam shenoagu. And it says, you're allowed to do malacha on Erev Pesach until chatzos if it's a place where the minhag is to do malacha. So the Gemara says, makam shenoagu in, lo noagu lo. First of all, it's only in a place where the custom is to do malacha. If not, then you're not allowed to. Ushma minon, you see from this brisa, letzorech hamoed in, shelo letzorech hamoed lo. This is only allowed, letzorech hamoed. Brisa again says explicitly, letzorech hamoed is where it is allowed. Otherwise, it's not. Shelo letzorech hamoed lo. If it's not letzorech hamoed, it's a problem. Shma minon, you indeed see from this a proof to what exactly Rabbi Meir's opinion is. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, v'chachamim omrim shalosh umnios. The Chachamim said there are 3 craftsmen that are allowed to do malacha on Erev Pesach. So now the Gemara gives the reason. Tana, we learned in a brisa, hachayot, and why are the tailors allowed to work on Erev Pesach? Shekein hedyo tofer kedarko b'chol shel moed. Because we find another leniency when it comes to sewing. A hedyot, somebody who's not a professional, is allowed to sew in the normal fashion on Chol HaMoed. Hasaparin v'hakovsin, when it comes to barbers, when it comes to people doing laundry, why are they allowed to work on Erev Pesach? Shekein haba mimedinas hayom v'hayotzim mibeis ha'asurin. Halacha also over there we have certain leniencies. If somebody comes from Medinas Hayam, from far away, gets out of jail, the halacha is misaprin u'mechabsin b'chol shel moed. They're allowed to get haircuts, they're allowed to do laundry on Chol HaMoed. So since we have this leniency on Chol HaMoed, we have a leniency on Erev Pesach as well. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda says, Afar Ratzon, and even the shoemakers can be lenient on Erev Pesach. Shekein Ole Regalim, because it's true by the Ole Regalim, those who are visiting for the regel, when they're traveling, Mesaknin min alein b'chol shel moed, they're allowed to fix their shoes on Chol HaMoed. So again, we have a leniency in that regard, so we can be lenient on Erev Pesach as well. Gemara says, "B'mai kamiflagi." Well, what are they arguing about? Why is Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda arguing with the Tanakama here? He's adding on the case of the shoemakers. Mar Savar, because one holds L'meidin Tchilas Malacha Misof Malacha. You're allowed to learn out what's allowed at the beginning from stuff that's allowed at the end. Mar Savar, but the other one holds Ein L'meidin Tchilas Malacha Misof Malacha. You can't learn out something starting a malacha from finishing off a malacha. Rashi over here explains Tchilas Malacha Ratzonin She'osin Min Olayim Chadoshim. The shoemakers are not just fixing shoes, they're making brand new shoes. Misof malacha tikun min olayim. You can't learn that out from somebody who's just fixing a shoe that breaks. So the fact that there's a leniency on Chol HaMoed for somebody who's ola l'regel to fix a shoe, according to the first opinion, says that doesn't allow a shoemaker to make a shoe on Erev Pesach. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says no, you can even learn out from there that the shoemakers can make a shoe on Erev Pesach. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Moshivin Shovchin Latarnagolim B'Yodalet on the 14th of Nisan, continuing things you can or cannot do on the 14th of Nisan. You're allowed to take a hen and put it on top of the eggs on the 14th of Nisan. V'tarnagolas shabarcha, let's say the hen ran away, machzir no sola makoma, you can return it to its place. V'yemeson, if the hen dies, moshivin acheres tachta, you can put another one in its place. Garfin mitachas ragle behema b'Yodalet. On the 14th of Nisan, you're allowed to sweep out the dung from under the feet of the animals. U'v'moed and Chol HaMoed misalkin l'tzdadim, you just move it to the sides. Molichin kalim u'meviyin mibeisa uman, you're allowed to bring kalim to the craftsman or bring them from the craftsman. even though they are not for the use on the holiday. Gemara says, Hashta osove mosavinon. If already you're allowed to take a hen in the first place and put it on top of the eggs, do you have to even say that you can return it? Of course you can return it. If you're allowed to be moshivin shovchin, so if it ran away, of course you're machzir no salam makoma. It doesn't even need to be stated. Amar Abaya says, Seifa asan l'chol shel moed. The Seifa is talking not about the 14th, but it's talking even on Chol HaMoed. Chol HaMoed were usually stricter than the 14th of Nisan. On Chol HaMoed, you're allowed to return the hen which ran away. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Huna says, Lo shanu ala toch shlosha lemorda, ta'akati lo parach tzimra minah. This halacha that you can return the hen to the eggs is only true if it's within 3 days of the hen rebelling, because the heat has not dissipated from the hen, so it's going to be effective when the hen sits on the eggs once again. V'achar shlosha liyeshivasa depastala belagamri. Also, you're only allowed to return the hen to the eggs if it's already sat upon the eggs for 3 days. So in such a situation, if it doesn't continue, if you don't return it, the eggs are going to be completely lost. It's going to be a total loss of money. But if it's already more than 3 days after the animal rebelled, the heat has already dissipated from the hen. Or if it's less than 3 days that the hen sat on the eggs, in such a situation, the eggs are not a complete loss. They're still usable in some degree. So in those cases, lo mahadrinon, you're not allowed to return the hen to the egg. Rabbi Yami says, Afilu toch shloshel liyeshivasa mahadrinon. Even if it's been less than 3 days that it sat, you're still allowed to return it. What's the argument? What are they arguing about? Mar savar lehefsid meruba chashu lehefsid mu'ah lo chashashu. One holds if it's a big loss of money, we're concerned. A small loss of money, like in a case where it's toch shlosha, we're not concerned. Umar savar, but Rabbi Yami holds lehefsid mu'ah nami chashu. We're worried about a small loss of money as well. Even if it sat on the eggs for less than 3 days, there's still a little bit of a loss of money involved. Rashi over here says, Afilu toch shlosha liyeshivasa. Rabbi Yami says even within 3 days, hoel v'nishtanu k'tzah, since it's caused a little bit of a change in the egg. Ve'in ru'uyin l'chol adam ela l'misha daito yafa ve'eno istanis mahadrinon. But still, the egg is not fit for everybody. It's only fit for somebody who's not such an istanis, who's not so picky. Even in such a situation, you're allowed to return it. Lehefsid mu'at shemochrim bezul, because now it's a small hefsid because you're going to sell it a little cheaper. L'misha daito yafa, only somebody who's not picky is going to buy it. It's gone down in value. It's not a total loss, but it's a little bit of a loss. And Rabbi Yami says still, even if it's just a little bit of a loss, you're allowed to go get the hen, retrieve the hen, and have it sit on top of the eggs. The Mishnah again said, Gorfen mitachas, you sweep the dung from under the legs of the animal on the 14th. And the Gemara says, Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a Braisa, Hazevel, if you have manure, shebechotzer, that's in the courtyard, misalkin oso litzdadin, then you sweep it off to the sides. Sheberefes v'shebechotzer, now if it's in the barn, or if it's in the courtyard, seems to be the same case, motzian oso la'ashba, then you bring it out to the garbage heap. So the Gemara asks the obvious contradiction. Hagufa kasha, it's internally contradictory. Amrit zevel shebechotzer misalkin oso litzdadin. First you say if it's in the courtyard, you push it to the sides. And then you say in the barn or the chotzer, the exact same case of chotzer, motzian oso la'ashba, you don't just do it to the sides, you're allowed to take it out of the chotzer and bring it to the garbage heap. So the Gemara answers, Amar Abaya says, Lo kash, it's not difficult. Kan be a dalit, kan b'chol shel moed. One's talking about on the 14th, and one talks about on Chol HaMoed. On Chol HaMoed, we're stricter than the 14th. So on Chol HaMoed, you're only allowed to sweep it off to the sides, but on the 14th, you can even take it out to the ashba. Rava says, Hava b'chol shel moed. Both statements are talking about on Chol HaMoed, so how do we answer the contradiction? V'hachi kamer, this is what it means to say, Im nase chotzer kerefes. The Braisa at the end means to say, if the chotzer becomes so dirty that it's like a refes, it's like a barn, then motzian oso la'ashba, then you're even allowed to take it out to the garbage heap. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Molichin kelim u'mevi'in bebeisa uman. You're allowed to bring kelim to the beisa uman, to the craftsman on the 14th of Nisan on Erev Pesach, and you're allowed to bring them home from the craftsman. So the Gemara says, Amar Rapapa says, Bodiklan Rava tested us. He asked us the following question. Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, Molichin u'maviyim kelim mi beisa uman. It says you're allowed to take kelim and bring them from the beisa uman, afal pi she'enon letzorach hamoed, even though they're not needed for the holiday. We're in a minute, we have a contradiction from the following Braisa. Braisa says, Ein maviyim kelim mi beisa uman. You're not allowed to bring kelim from the beisa uman. with the following exception: if you're afraid they might get stolen, then you can't bring them home, but you can bring them to some other chutzner that's near the Beis HaUman. It's too much of a tircha to bring them all the way to your house. That's too much malacha. So the Gemara continues, Umishaninon. So Rav Papa says, we answered the question as follows: Lo kash, it's not difficult. Kan bi'arbo asur, kan b'chol shel moed. The Mishnah is talking about the 14th of Nisan. There you can be lenient. You can bring it home from the Beis HaUman. But on Chol HaMoed, then it's already going to be a problem. V'ibay saying, if you want, I could say another answer. Hava b'chol shel moed. Both the Mishnah and the Brisa are talking about Chol HaMoed. V'lo kash, it's not difficult. Kan b'ma'amino, kan b'sheinu ma'amino. It depends if you trust the craftsman, if you don't trust the craftsman. If you trust the craftsman, so then ein mevi, and then you're not allowed to bring them home. That's the brisa, because you already trust him, let him keep it. But if you don't trust him, that's what it's talking about in our Mishnah, where it says you're allowed to bring it home. And Gemara brings a proof to this distinction between ma'amino and she'eno ma'amino. V'atanya, we learned in a brisa, mevi and kalim mi beis ha'uman, you're allowed to bring kalim from the beis ha'uman. Kagon hakad mi beis hakadr, you can bring the jug from the person who makes the jugs. V'akos mi beis hazagog, you bring the cup from the glass maker. Avolot semer mi beis hatzeva, you can't bring wool from the beis hatzeva. V'lo kalim mi beis ha'uman, you can't bring kalim from the beis ha'uman. This is talking about kalim that are not needed for the holiday. V'mein lo ma'yochal, and if the craftsman doesn't have what to eat, he needs his payment right away. No sein lo scharo, you can give him money, you pay him. Umanicho etzlo, you leave it by him. V'meino ma'amino, but if you don't trust him, manichon bebayis hasamachlo, then you can take it from him and you put it in the nearby house. V'mchoshe shema yignevu, and if he's afraid that it might get stolen, mevion betzino besoch beso, then he's allowed to bring it privately, even into his own house. So in any case, the point is, you see from this brisa, we make a distinction between an uman who you trust and an uman who you do not trust. So it's going to be the same thing over here to answer the Mishnah and the brisa. If you have an uman who you trust him, so then ein mevi, and then you can't bring it home. But if you don't trust him already, then you can. But the Gemara says it's not really a good answer. Tirtzis mevi'in, you've answered the contradiction between whether you can bring it home or not. So we said it depends whether you trust him or not. But molich and kasha, but what about to take it to the uman? The brisa that said you can't bring it home would certainly say you can't take it to the uman. And our Mishnah even said molich, and you're allowed to take it to the uman. The katani ein mevi'in, because the brisa said you're not allowed to again bring it home. The kol shekein dein molich, and certainly you can't take stuff to the uman. Ella machvarta kidushanin and meikara. So the Gemara says rather give the answer we said before. Our Mishnah is lenient because it's talking about the 14th. The brisa is more strict because it's talking about Chol HaMoed. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Shisha Devarim Asu Ansha Yericho. There were 6 things that the people of Yericho, they had a custom to do. Al Shlosha Michu Biyadam. On 3 of them, they protested against them. What they did was considered inappropriate. Al Shlosha Lo Michu Biyadam. And on 3 of them, they didn't protest. It was not considered inappropriate. The following, they didn't protest. The following were considered okay. Markivin Dekalim Kol Ayom. They would graft the palm trees the entire 14th. That they would do that malacha, and they didn't protest. The karchen as shema, they would also bundle shema. That will be explained in the Gemara. The kotzrin v'gochin lifnei omer, and they would also harvest and they would heap up before the omer. Rashi over here says v'kotzrin lo garsinon. Forget about harvesting. Take that out of the Mishnah. That's completely mutter. It says in Menachos, mimakom shi'at tamei v'ata kotzer, from the place where you can't bring, you can harvest. Utvuas Yericho shal amakim hi ve'eno ksheira lemenachos. The area of Yericho is in the valley. It wasn't kosher for carbon mincha anyway. Tetnan ein mevi and solas lemincha lo mi beis hashalchin v'lo mi beis ha'emek v'chulu ulahachi eno ksheira leomer. You couldn't have brought that for the omer anyway. Dein menachos ba mimenu. You can't bring carbon mincha from that area. Deva'inon mishvach Eretz Yisrael. You need to bring from the best areas of Eretz Yisrael. Tialfinon hasam gzeira shava Eretz Eretz. That's learned out of gzeira shava Eretz Eretz. So therefore, take out the girsa of the kotzrin. But the gochin lefnei omer, they would heap up, they would pile up before the omer. V'elu shemichu biyadim. In the following, they protested against them. Matir and gamzios shel hekdesh. Rashi explains, Matir and gamzios gidulin anofim shegadlu becharuvin v'shikmin. These were branches that grew in the carob trees and in the sycamore trees, shehekdishu avosein, which were sanctified by their fathers. Hein hayu matirin lehanos min hagidulim. That which grew from it, they said, you're allowed to get hana from that. That's not a problem of getting hana from hektish. Derech harav v'shikma lekotzo l'shev hashanim. These kind of vegetations, you cut them every 7 years. Vein chozrinu gedelinu mitosva, and then they grow and they add on. V'kodem kitzisasam kari le besula shikma umishenixas kari le sadan shikma. Before you cut it, it would be called Besula Shikma. After you cut it, it would be called Sadan Shikma. Viktishu Mitchila, and they sanctified it originally. Keshen Mikutzatzin Vinitosav La'achar Mikan Gamzios. When they were cut, they made it sanctified, and then it would add on a little, and they said that was mutter, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nun Vav Amud Aleph.